listening to the Bulldog Hour, getting you inside the Wilson football program with weekly game previews, recaps, highlights, and interviews. Now, here are your hosts, Joe Mays and Justin Raffoff.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to the Bulldog Hour. I am one of your hosts, Joe Mays, and sitting next to me is my co-host, Justin Raffoff.
Yeah, it's good to be here, ready to talk more Wilson football.
Yeah, we have a good one this evening. We've got a lengthy conversation with Wilson football head coach, Doug Dahms, and I mentioned to him that this is always one that pretty much everyone looks forward to. They want to hear what the head coach has to say, and he's been doing this now for this is his 14th season as the head coach, and just a couple more as an assistant coach, hanging around the program, just a few
multipliers of that.
Yeah, so we have a great discussion. Justin and I interviewed him last week, and we talked about 2018, we talked about 2019, we talked a little bit about 2020. We hit on what's new in high school football, what's the status. Obviously, we talked a lot about Wilson, but we also talked about interest in high school football in the state of Pennsylvania and concussions and head injuries in football. There was a variety of stuff that we talked about, and he gave us some bold and honest answers for everything we threw at him, and we always appreciate our time with him.
Yeah, his insight into some of the changes that we'll see in football this year were things that kind of flew under the radar, even for me, because some of the headlines, have been alignment and those types of things, and there's been lots of other headlines that involve high school football. So some of the things that are going to affect every game, whether Wilson's playing or we're talking about single A schools playing, it was just interesting to hear his take on that as one of the big things. So
right.
There's lots of great insight. Always a great interview, so it'll be fun.
Before we get to his interview, just our normal housekeeping stuff and an announcement that because of the length of a few of the interviews, we're not going to mash this together into 1 2-hour episode. We're going to split it up like we kind of started last year. So tonight will just be Coach Dahms because his run's, I think, close to 50 minutes long. Yeah. And then we're going to have a special midweek show. Wednesday evening, we're going to broadcast our interviews with defensive coordinator Ernie Wolber and the new defensive line assistant coach Chase Godfrey.
It's only appropriate that they ramp it up to 3 practices a day tomorrow, and we ramp it up to
right. We can just make sure that we get 2 shows in a few days. Yeah,
almost.
It's
the same level.
Same amount of work, obviously.
I'm obviously kidding. Please don't hate me for that.
So, a great interview to get to with Coach Dahms. But again, the housekeeping things, we mentioned about the schedule. So you're getting a show from us tonight. You're getting a show from us on Wednesday. And then next weekend, you'll get a show from us, which will recap the Parkland scrimmage and preview the Central Dauphin game, because by the time that we're back for that, we're less than a week from the first game, which is kind of crazy to think about.
Absolutely crazy.
But a few other things here, just our normal stuff. We want to thank our sponsors, May's Sandwich Shop, and our anonymous donor. And just to let you know that there are ways that you can help us out on the show, a variety of ways you can support us, starting with the sponsorships and advertising or your in-kind donations, always greatly appreciated. Be sure to visit the website, not just to help us out, but also to get a lot of information about the show, about the football team, and about the outreach that they do. And then finally, just simple things like spreading the word, or like Justin talks about all the time.
Like and share.
Yep. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, especially. Again, the website is a great place too. So look for at Bulldog Hour across those sites. Check out at Wilson Bulldogs or at Wilson Bulldogs Football, and just follow us and interact with us on there. It's a great way to help us out.
Yeah, we kind of say that like tongue in cheek a little bit, just because it is kind of silly. You have obviously already found this, but that helps other people know about it. But it is interesting. I kind of really just thought about it this week, how this kind of all started with just like Twitter updates,
back in November 2010.
This started as just like Twitter updates, and it has evolved from there into all the stuff that it has become, which is pretty cool. But so spreading through those platforms is huge and has helped get us to where we are. And the more that happens, the hopefully the more cool things we can also continue to do and share.
Absolutely. So definitely be following us and just spread information about us, the show, and the football
I
program.
remember the first time I had to do that for you. I was scared to death.
Update
Oh
on
my
Twitter.
gosh.
Yeah, it was a couple years into it, I think,
Yeah,
too. Because
yeah.
if I didn't get to a game in the first year or two, I
There-
just kind
First
of
all, there are not many instances where that happened at all, but I just
it was the Hempfield game in 2014 because I went to a wedding out in the Pittsburgh
well,
area.
there we go.
Yeah, I was following your updates while I was sitting in my in-laws' basement that night for the wedding was the next day, and I was just like, I hope he doesn't screw this up, man.
If I would have signed off as Joe Mays.
Of course. No, I thought. Well, no, let's
Yeah,
not
I-
bring
I know
let's not
exactly.
bring up any other of our
I know
friends
exactly
into this
what
as
you're gonna
the
say on
running
that one.
joke. But so the other two things I wanted to talk about before we get to the Dahms interview is first. There was a tweet last week sent by our buddy Andy Herr, who's been a supporter of the show, a longtime listener,
And a good
great
follow.
guy. Yeah,
Great follow for
he
football,
writes
too.
for Eastern PA football. You can follow his stuff. He does all kinds of stuff in the Lancaster-Lebanon area and journeys elsewhere as well. And he's a huge basketball guy. He's a Warwick grad and a big Nebraska
Yeah,
fan.
if you're a Nebraska fan, he's a must follow.
But he decided to put out his preseason predictions for the Lancaster-Lebanon League's 3 sections in football for this year. You'll hear more about the 4 sections in football coming in 2020 in our Doug Dahms interview coming up. But Andy wanted to let the world know that in Section 3, he's all about Anvil-Cleona. Section 2, he thinks Cocalico will unseat Manheim Central, which I
That's
think
big. That's
probably
big.
caught the attention of a lot of people. And then, well, I made sure that everyone paid attention to his pick for Section 1 because he has Manheim Township winning the title over Wilson and Warwick and all the other teams in Section 1, and also has them winning District 3 again
No.
at 6A for the second time in 3 years.
Right. And we will certainly give Andy a hard time when we see him. However,
We want to make sure that everyone knew to give him a hard time.
However, it's unlikely that Andy will be alone in those picks. I'm not saying
No,
for you and
absolutely
me,
not. He
but,
definitely will be. Or he definitely will not be
right.
alone.
Manheim Township returns a lot.
Yeah,
They
I
return a
think
lot.
maybe the entire defensive side, if not all 11, 10 out of 11.
Yeah, and I think if that's the case, the 11th got a lot of playing time last year. So anyway, regardless, we're going to give Andy a hard time, even though he's just doing his job.
Yeah.
But
It's just fun.
Yeah, exactly.
I did want to make sure that the senior players were well aware of it.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
I know a lot of obviously coaches say this, but media members too. Like, I don't want to give out bulletin board material for any team. I'm like, no, please do. It's
Right.
better that way.
Right.
So I appreciate Andy's help so far this year.
Right.
Looking forward to that continuing as the year goes on. Please keep picking against us, everyone. I mean, there are teams that hung their hat on that. Actually, right near the beginning of when I started this, the 2011 team felt disrespected. 2012 didn't. There probably was something in there, but 2012 lived up to expectations, and people knew what they had coming back from 2011 that they would be okay. But 2013 and 2014 got completely overlooked too, and both squads used that to just go undefeated in the regular season. One of them winning district title. So it works in our favor when media members slight us a little bit.
Yeah, we'll take it.
I'm fine with that. Keep it coming. Keep it coming. Then the last thing was I did want to show the article that was in the paper today, not just because I mentioned in it, but because it's a great article on the tradition of Wilson football from the Reading Eagle. So hopefully everyone took a look at it today. It was written by Mike Drago and posted late last night and is in the print edition, saying that tradition is everything for the Wilson football program, celebrating its 75th anniversary this year. So yes, this fall is obviously the 75th season, as we've been talking about probably for months now. But Mike Drago goes through just kind of how it all started and has some quotes. Talk to me, talk to Coach Dahms. He talks about some of the records and a variety of things about the program. From the beginning, focusing on when Gursky got here and going up through Slemmer, Contafio, and Dahms. And we appreciate the coverage from Mike and the Reading Eagle, and hopefully that can continue this fall. And I didn't realize this because I at first read on the online version that I'm showing you now, but it's quite a big spread in the print edition.
Yeah, so
of the newspaper.
I saw you share it, but I wanted to wait because I know my parents still get the print edition. So I went and I read it, their copy today, and it is a big spread. It's really cool. We were talking.
I have it here.
We were giving Andy some praise there. Andy Herr, a great follow, but if you're a Wilson or Berks County sports fan, you probably already are following Mike on Twitter and things like that. But if not, give him a follow.
Yeah, for sure. So I gotta figure out.
And we know there were some ups and downs with local media, not like personally, but just like in terms of their little unknown future this year. So when you can, give them support because they really do an awesome job covering teams like Wilson and all the local teams to the best of their ability. So the more we can support them, the better coverage we will continue to have.
Like we talk about it helping us. Like we knowing people watch us or or listen to the podcast or interact with us when we post stuff. If you do that for their sports stories, it doesn't have to be sports, but obviously we're talking about sports. But and if you want them to cover something, give them a reason to. Show them that you're interested. Show them that you're reading the stuff that they put out. And if you're from a school that you don't think gets enough coverage, start doing it yourself, and it'll come. It happens. That's what we did here. So, I sat down with Mike a couple weeks ago. I'm glad it was in the paper today, and I think it was a great article, and it was so much bigger than I expected it to be when I opened up the paper and saw.
It's not like a little footnote thing.
No, like the front, the intro part of it has the 75th season logo on, and on the inside has the throwback W in the football that's on the helmets this year, and there's they have pictures of Gursky and Collins and Henney and Gilmore and all kind of things. So Mike did a great job of that, and hopefully everyone got to see it either online or in the newspaper. But that's it for now from, the housekeeping angle. Let's get into it. Let's get to our interview with Coach Dahms. It's everyone here and waiting for it. They want to hear it. So let's not wait any longer. Let's play that for you now. I hope everyone enjoys it. All right, well, thank you, Coach Doug Dahms, for joining us once again here on the Bulldog Hour. You're always our most anticipated interview. Although the players may be giving you a run for their money. They really got the word out, and they had a viewing party, and we had a huge following with a lot of views. So we'll see if you can tackle that and remain your number one spot in our viewers' eyes.
Yeah, the kids are number one. That's all right with me.
We're going to talk almost exclusively about this season, but we always touch a little bit on last year, and then we'll even always look ahead a little bit to next year with schedule-related things. But looking back on 2018, 8-4, a shared LL title. What were your thoughts on sharing the title last year? I know it's a little bit of a sticky point, and I'm not sure it's
I guess it's better to share than not have it at all.
Right.
But when we beat Township, we put ourselves in the driver's seat to win it outright, and then just, had a very bad game and did not play well against Warwick. So ended up sharing it. I think we had high expectations last year, but, in my 44th, this is my 44th year of coaching, never had those kind of injuries. I mean, we lost, I think we played 4 games without 8 starters and played most of the season without 5. And, losing Johnson early, who was, big glue on defense, but really important to our offensive scheme, and Connor Cook for the season and a few of the others. We were just battling to keep our heads above water, and, knock on wood, we don't have those kind of injury problems again.
Yeah, and unfortunately, we're sitting here again a year later and saying the same thing, because the year before was the secondary. Everyone in the secondary was beat up.
Hurt, right.
And we talked about maybe 2018, we'll put that behind us. And then you lose Nick early during the second game against Mifflin. You lose Eli Rotenberg for almost the entire year after a little bit against just one game against Central Dauphin. And the hits just kept on coming. So, yes, hopefully, knock on wood, that's gone. We're over. It's done.
That's things we consider and think about and talk about all the time. But, the non-league schedule, your Mifflin's obviously just one of those kind of games where you're going to bang heads a lot. Spring Ford's always tough. Central Dauphin's always physical, and then Manheim Central. So the schedule's not conducive to staying healthy.
Right. Now, looking ahead to this year and related to maybe the injuries and the war of attrition the last 2 years, is this one of the deeper teams? Are you still top heavy in terms of talent or seniors or leadership?
We're deep at some positions and very, very thin at others. So it's one of those years where, we have to be strategic in how we play the kids and, try to stay as healthy and obviously work really hard with the twos at those thin positions. But, staying healthy is always a big part of the game.
It seems, at least on the offensive side of the ball, the wide receiver group and the running back group are very deep. Maybe not a lot of playing time with some of those other student athletes, but they all have a lot of potential. Whereas there's a few other groups that you have a couple guys, but you're not sure much after that.
I think we're pretty comfortable 4 deep at the running back position. Yeah. With Avanti and Futrick and Mason Leonard and then Jaden Jones. So I think we're pretty solid there, 4 deep. Wide receiver core, I'd say the first 4 or 5 are all interchangeable, and there's a couple guys that are coming along, so we're going to be pretty solid there. Offensive line, I think we're pretty deep. Not experienced in some positions, but, have some kids that can play. Quarterback, obviously, is going to be the big question mark offensively. Where we go there, how we go there will be a big key on how our offense goes.
And how has that been playing out so far in the spring and summer? There's 3 players, there's 1 senior, Nick Williams, then you have 2 juniors, Caleb Brown, Ryan Mosman. Has anyone separated as of yet, or is this going to be down to the wire battle?
At this stage of the game, I wouldn't say any of them has clearly risen to the top. But we're at a point. This is a situation we had this last year with Cameron Heckman, where not having a second scrimmage really hurts, because normally that first scrimmage you could give equal time to all 3 of them, and then whoever emerged and you think is going to start, you can play that person a little bit more in that second scrimmage. But we don't have that luxury anymore. So going into that first scrimmage, we're going to have to decide after the first week of practice who we think is going to be our first quarterback. And he's going to have to get at least half the reps, and the other 2 guys are going to have to share the reps.
Do you anticipate there being any kind of rotation or sub-package getting them more involved if you don't have a true number 1? Like in 2012, we saw a few quarterbacks rotate in before Matt Timochenko really seized the deal way back in, week 7 or week 8? It took a while.
Yeah, Hempfield, week 8. So
is that a possibility, or?
It's always a possibility, but we don't anticipate it.
Okay. Sure. What were the biggest losses from this year, from last year to this year? Be it, we know the players that graduated obviously moved on. Was there anyone else that left the program, student athlete, coach wise, that you could see an impact this year?
Well, Coach Cavell won't be back on the defensive line, and he's been with us for a long time, and a whole wealth of enthusiasm and knowledge. So that's going to be a loss. Eric Bauminer helped him out was his assistant for quite a few years. So Eric's going to have to step up and take a little bit more responsibility. And then we hired Chase Godfrey, who coached at the
he coached with us last
year, and has coached he had coached before in South Carolina at varsity level. So he's excited to be there, but it's going to be a learning curve, and you can't replace that experience. You just got to develop, and I'll spend a lot of time with those guys, making sure everything's getting done to what we want. And then we hired another new coach, Dan Lavia, who got a phys ed job at the high school. He'll be helping out in the secondary and learning the ropes pretty much this year. Our secondary coaches are back, but he'll learn the ropes. And he's young and he's enthusiastic, and he was helping out at Downingtown West, I believe, last year. So he's got some background. So
good.
Those are our 2 new guys.
We're gonna at least talk to Coach Chase and maybe Coach Lavia in the following interview, so we'll get to know them a little bit better then. Before we focus strictly on Wilson and their opponents, are there any wide-ranging changes to high school football this year? PIAA, District 3, new rules? Is there anything going on that the listener should know about?
Well, probably the big one is the 40-second clock. Most people are used to high school football from the time the ball is set and the ref blows the whistle, you have 25 seconds. That's no longer, they're going to the 40-second clock like they do in college. The moment a play is blown dead, 40-second clock starts, and then you have to snap the ball within that 40 seconds. It's going to be an adjustment for the officials because they can't take their time and everything, or we're going to be ready to snap the ball. You blow a play dead, and they're getting off the pile and get everybody up and getting the ball back. That's going to be a bit of an adjustment. I think it's going to be it could be interesting. They piloted it last year in, I think, 4 states.
Okay.
And it went pretty well. What it's going to do is, I think it's going to kill at the end of the game, it's going to be so easy to kill the clock. Because the clock, you got 40 seconds now instead of 25.
Right.
So it's real easy to just kill the clock.
Just kind of wait around, let the clock run.
Make the timeouts a little bit more important.
Now, will the referees coming to the scrimmage against Parkland, will they simulate that if you go to game situation?
They're supposed to.
Okay.
The places like, for us where we have, we had to get our end zone clocks recalibrated because you need before you needed the 25-second clock and the 60-second clock, 25-second for a play, 60 seconds for a timeout. Now you need a 25, a 40, and a 60 because, like, if there's a penalty, they set the ball, and now it's 25 seconds. But if it's a play that ended with a normal play, first down or whatever, it's 40 seconds. So you need a 25, 40, and 60-second clock. And hopefully the official will know which to
signal and which one to push.
Which button to push.
So a lot of interesting behind the scenes type stuff that a lot of people may not even notice at first. A lot of your fans
probably won't, except they may look at the end zone clock and see it's running right away at 40 seconds instead of 25.
Yeah, you could have some people yelling in the stands that they're not doing it right.
They very well could. Of course, they know everything.
Oh, absolutely. Well, yeah, for sure.
I mean, all you have to do is listen.
So we're in the second year of a 2-year cycle, so there's no schedule changes this year other than we're flip-flopping the home and away games. Right. But the home slate is really, really strong this year.
Very interesting. It's a good slate to have at home.
Yeah, I mean, if people want to see a Wilson football game and they don't like to travel, they can only get the Gursky. This is a year to take advantage of that because, I mean...
Central Dauphin, Manheim Central, Manheim Township,
Warwick and then McCaskey right there at the end. So,
I mean, you got Hempfield on the road, it'll be tough, and you got Mifflin on the road, it'll be tough. But Mifflin's almost like a home game, except our fans get upset because there's not enough bleachers for the home.
Right, that's always the complaint every other year when we talk about that game. Is there one that stands out to you on the schedule, home or away, just the one that you're looking forward to, or is an interesting one, or one that you maybe, this is the point we need to know what we are?
Well, with our non-league season, it's one of those, it's great to go 4-0, but boy, Central Dauphin has had our number in
since 2014,
season now, 4 years in a row. And it's that's when we got to get that elephant off our back. And then after that, there's going to be some good games. Central's got a all-state quarterback back. Manheim Township's got almost their entire defense back.
Yep.
And a really good quarterback. Warwick's got their quarterback receiver combination back and a 6'8", blue chip
D1
lineman.
recruit. Yep.
So it's going to be an interesting. We're just one at a time.
Right.
As we always say, one at a time and stay healthy. I always said, as thin as we are at some positions, it'd be nice to get a game where you could get those guys out, but
not the way it planned out.
Not the way it plays out.
We'll come back to the schedule for the 2020 in the future because I'm sure you'll have something to talk about realignment. But let's. The only team that we didn't talk about too much yet briefly was Springford, and we don't get a lot of coverage in this area. People tend to focus on Berks, LL, and Mid-Penn. So with Springford out there and your familiarity, what do the Rams have coming back when you go down to visit them in Royersford this year? Do they return quarterbacks, skill guys? I know Coach Brubaker's obviously back.
Coach Brubaker obviously knows us fairly well, but they graduated their best players.
Okay.
They had a nice wideout, underclass wideout, but he was a rookie last year. They had a big wideout last year that was a rookie. And they had a pretty decent running back. I'm not quite sure up front what they have back. I haven't looked at it yet.
Yeah, it's a little early,
you know.
but
They always put a good product on the field, and he, we're his central dolphin. He can't ever beat us. He can't seem to beat us, and that sticks in his.
Oh, absolutely. Well, anytime you have that, former team, mentor, former player, whatever is the relation, you always want to make sure you get the best of them. So, well, I hope it stays on the current trajectory.
I hope so.
So we talked about this is kind of a senior heavy team. There's a pretty good senior class. I talked to a lot of them already. But is there a new to-be senior this year that maybe we haven't heard much from in his first 2 years that is maybe destined to make a big impact on the 2019 squad?
Well, I think Avanti, being hurt for 5 games last year, and Eli being hurt for most of the season last year, both of them, could be impact players for us. Wait to see, Sal Pugliese coming off a knee injury, could be a very important cog on the offensive side of the ball. But, the rest of them, I think, have played quite a bit. We were very underclass laden last year, so not too many new guys there.
All right. Well, then talking about the young guys, any of the the sophomores and juniors, any names going to stand out from that group? We know about Troy Corson. He's been here for how long now? But are there any others in his class or maybe even sophomores that could see some important time this year?
Well, Jeff Collison, who played quite a bit last year, I think could be a real impact player for us defensively. Ethan Capitano, we've moved from outside linebacker to defensive end, take advantage of his speed. And who was county runner-up in the 100 last year? That's good speed coming off the edge and pass rush. A couple young guys, we're waiting to see where they're going to fit in, how they're going to develop. But Mason Leonard, Eli, I already mentioned, they both have to come through for us defensively because they give us a lot of depth in the secondary. And that's where our question marks are: the corners and the outside and the linebackers. So.
What do you most want to see from this team that you're putting on the field? I don't want to ask about your expectations specifically because we know the expectations are week by week, game by game. But what do you want to see most from this team this year that maybe we didn't see last year, 2 years ago, or in the last handful of years?
We stress it over and over and over again. Let's get out of the blocks fast. We've had a tendency to be a little slow, in the first quarter getting in terms of scoring. And secondly, just be smarter. We have not. It amazes me as much time as we spend, with chalk talks and time on the field and films and everything else. They got to understand the game, because once you understand the game, it's a lot easier. And we have several players that are very good at that, but we have several players that, the better you understand the game, the better, the game plays.
Now, I know Mike Drago already talked to you about this, but little personal goal for you this year, or maybe not even goal, maybe you don't care, but you're sitting at 145 wins as head coach. You're 6 away from tying John Gursky, with 7 coming this year. You could be the new all-time winningest Wilson head coach. Does that mean anything to you? Is that important, having been with Coach Gursky and Coach Slemmer and being around all these other guys that have led this program? What does it mean to you to be in that position?
Well, first of all, give John his due. He put Wilson on the map. He came here when Wilson was a struggling football program that had only won maybe 3 winning seasons.
Yeah, I think you're right on the money there.
18 or 19 years before he got here, and John never had a losing season. He started in '64 and was 5-5, and just built it up to where it is. And then Jerry Slemmer took over and added a little bit more of a passing game, opened the offense up a little bit. Jim Cantafio took over and really opened the offense up a little bit. So, I took over a winning program. I didn't have to build a program. I had to mold it to what I wanted. I had to continue the tradition. But, it's been a little bit easier for me because we were established in winning teams expect to win. So as far as, is it a goal of mine? No. I don't compare myself to John. John was a legend. I learned a lot. I coached 7 years with John learned a lot from John. I think probably what I do best is steer the ship, because I can't stress enough, and John was the same way, and Jerry Slimmer was the same way. You can't stress enough how important the assistants are. Jeremy Palm and Ernie Wolber, as their OC in DC, just and Matt Bender's been with me all my years as well. They're the guys that they do the hard work. They're the guys. It's as much, if not more, their responsibility or their record than it is mine. I mean, I get the credit, I get all the pats on the back and everything, but and ultimately all decisions fall to me. But you can't do it without a staff like I have, and as I said, I have a pretty terrific staff. So, if and when that record comes to pass, it's a feather in their cap, more so, or every bit as much as it is a feather in mine.
Well, good. We look forward to talking to a bunch of them. For sure, Ernie Wolber will be sitting down with us. We're trying to get Jeremy. I know he's a little hesitant.
Yeah, maybe if you tell him he can bring his 3 kids.
That's fine. We'll bring our kids. We'll make it a party. It'll be good.
Big party.
What's the biggest thing on-field product that's changed from your first years with Gursky up until now? You mentioned what this year 44 as a coach at Wilson.
Yeah.
What's been the biggest change on the field?
Well, the game has become far more complicated. Teams are bigger, they're stronger, they're faster, and they've opened up the offenses. I mean, when John was here, we ran. If you took all of the plays that we ran over the 7 years I coached with John, 80% of those plays were either ISO or off tackle. 80%. Those 4 plays. Off tackle right, off tackle left, ISO right, ISO left. And then the other 20% were play action off of it, or some counters or things like that. You can't do that anymore because everybody's caught up in the weight room. We just basically pushed people around because we had a weight program and that John had brought and nobody else had one. But now everybody's got a weight program. Everybody lifts all year round. So the athletes are faster. So you've had to change with it. So offenses have changed dramatically. I mean, the days when John was here, we would go wing right, 62 drive, wing left, 61 drive, wing right, 16, wing left, 15. And then if we wanted to get really complicated, we'd throw a curve at him and go wing left, 16. Ooh,
go
that was a
little weak
week
play.
But now you almost never see 2 backs in the backfield. I mean, everybody's a 1-back offense. They
Everything's out of shotgun.
Almost everybody's out of shotgun or pistol. You got 4 wideouts most of the time. So you have to have more defensive backs, and you got to play more different coverages because the offense has opened up. So, yeah, it's not John Gursky football anymore. I mean, it's still blocking and tackling, and it's still, work to perfection. But, the game is totally different that way.
Do you think the shifting gears a little, the popularity of high school football in Pennsylvania has peaked and we're in a bit of a decline? Or I've been hearing a lot of people say that other sports are starting to dominate and we're seeing student athletes not being as involved, or maybe they're focusing more on one sport than others. And it seems that most people are listing football as the one that's being hurt the most by whatever the outside sources are, whether it's interests, whether it's other extracurricular activities. We had, issues with the head injuries and the concussions for a few years before medical awareness caught up with that. Do you think high school football in the state is dwindling, or what's your opinion on that?
Participation is dwindling. It's still, where is everybody on a Friday night, right? It's still the social, it's still the heart of high school. I think participation has dwindled, number one, because they've offered so many more new sports. So there's a lot of other things to do. Before where there was only 2 or 3 sports, now there's multiple sports. Other sports have started to go year round. And some of it is the millennial generation where they're not willing to. Football is always a sport where they were willing to pay their dues, get better, and then play as seniors. Other sports have always been, if the kid wasn't starting as a junior, they bagged it and they went to something else. Football never had that problem before, but we're starting to see some of it, and a lot of it is because all these other sports are cropping up. There's now fall baseball, there's fall lacrosse, and so if a kid didn't start, doesn't see himself starting as a junior, well, maybe I'll go concentrate on this, which is a shame. So it does hurt us. I mean, our numbers are down. We're going to start the season, probably about 76, 77, which is the least we've ever had in my 14 years.
Yeah, I was going to say that's, you were pushing close to triple digits at
Oh,
one
yeah.
point. You're at
Yeah,
90,
we were in the
95.
mid-90s there for a while.
Yeah.
And we've been hanging pretty much around 85. And this year, we dropped to that mainly because we had exactly what you said. We had a whole host of juniors that probably wouldn't have started this year, but would have played on special teams and everything else and been backups and guys ready to play. But they decided to concentrate on other sports. I think we had 9 of them. So you throw those 9 in, we're right back at 85.
Yep.
The concussion part, I've been trying to educate people on that. Football got such a bad rap with concussions. First of all, the movie Concussion wasn't about concussions. It was about the NFL neglecting what was going on with some health issues. But everybody saw concussion. And then the actual concussion study from a scientific standpoint, and Justin's a science person, he can understand this, totally irrelevant the way they did the study. They took 121 people who showed signs of dementia or problems, all right? And when they died, they looked at their brains. And they all had, CTE.
CTE.
And, well, of course they're going to have CTE. Those are the people that already showed it. But what about the other 3,000 that didn't have it? Or what about all the other athletes in other sports that they didn't do? They just took football. And they already showed, most of them already had drug and alcohol issues, and they found that drug and alcohol issues cause CTE, whether not football. And hey, granted, we've spent a lot of time being very aware of it and coaching, and we coach. We do not have a lot of concussion issues in our football program because of the way we coach. But I'm not saying let's not be aware of it. It's great to be aware of it, but we really got a bad rap. If you look at nationwide, or if you look here, I think we're only number 5 in terms of number of concussions per sport.
Well, as a
And
coach,
we're behind soccer, we're behind water polo, we're behind cheerleading.
Yep.
We're probably behind lacrosse.
Well, we have to take the recertifications every year to be a coach in the state of Pennsylvania. And when we first started this journey, 5-6 years ago, is when I believe that began right around that time. And there were the clinics you'd go to, they'd have athletic trainers, medical professionals, and everyone spreading awareness about what to do with the concussions and head injuries and such. And when they went into that, and everyone's football, got to talk to the football team, football players, football coaches, got to talk to them. Well, then they get to their presentation and football's 5th on the list. But why are you focusing here when they're 4th or 5th? And I think they did it by state, and that's self-reporting, which brings it in all kinds of messes. But yeah, it was always interesting to me that that football was the focus when it wasn't even number 1 in terms of rate of occurrence. But we just saw recently, and I will link to this study that basically what you just said. Like now there seems to be there's not a direct link to football and CTE.
Well, there was no control group. So what they should have done is done autopsies on 300 random people. And then, okay, of those 300 random people, how many of them had CTE? Maybe they all would have had CTE. And maybe only half of them played football. So football wasn't necessarily the cause.
Right.
But the good thing that came out of it is, I think it's not so much that the kids won't get a concussion, but if they get a concussion, they're not returned to play until they're totally
second impact syndrome is huge.
That is huge. And that I would have to say, old school, we've never been that way because of John Moyer, or, because of our trainer and that, but old school was, when I played, I probably had a dozen concussions. Mm-hmm. But, as soon as you could, you went back in the game. As soon as you shook your head and your head cleared up, you went back in the game.
Right.
That's the way it was. I was knocked unconscious my freshman year in college. I was out, they said 5 minutes. I practiced the next day. I mean, you know,
Yeah. Well, I mean, how to treat head injuries like that
man,
has.
look at me.
We've seen massive changes over the years, and you mentioned John Doc Moyer. He's been here now. I mean, I believe this is his 41st fall. He's
Right.
celebrating his 40th anniversary with the school district this year. So, and he's obviously a huge cog across the state in terms of athletic trainers, and so we are blessed to have one of the best. But you know, Justin and I talk all the time when it comes to science and statistics that, well, you know, correlation doesn't mean causation. Just because it looks like there might be a link doesn't mean there is a link.
Football is still number one for the most participation. So, you know, they'll sit there and they'll say, well, yeah, look, football has the most concussions. Yeah, but when you do it on a percentage basis, now we're down to number 5 or 6, you know.
Yeah.
And they worry a lot with the young kids. And then that's something I think with youth football that they shouldn't worry. I'm not saying they shouldn't worry about concussion. They need to be aware of it. And they should all be trained. But, you know, the impact is just, you know, so low at that age.
Right. Well, let's get back onto the schedule talk that I alluded to earlier. 2020, there's going to be a lot of changes with the LL realigning from the current 3 sections to 4 sections, dropping another team, meaning you have to add another non-league game. They're keeping the crossovers for another 2-year cycle. What is your reaction to that plan that was, I guess, ratified back in February to take place starting next year? What do you think about it?
I think it's dumb.
We knew the answer.
We knew that. I'm not trying to lead it too much, but
First of all, if you go step back for a second, there was a movement to merge Berks in the LL. And the idea was that there are some small teams in the LL that are struggling, going 1-9, 0-10 every year, and there's some small teams in Berks. But those small teams don't have enough other teams to go against. They have to go up against the stronger teams. So the movement was, hey, let's merge Berks and the LL and go with 5 divisions. And now you're going to have a whole lot of those 0-10, 1-9, 2-8 teams playing each other. Well, now guess what? They're not going to be 0-9, 0-10.
Right.
Now somebody's going to be 8-2, somebody's going to be 6-5, and they're going to win. And they're going to get a chance to build. But they nixed that. All right. So now they go from 3 sections to 4 sections with the idea that, oh, this will give more teams a chance to win a championship. No doubt about that logic. There's only one problem. We now have 5 league games, which means we need 5 non-league games. Well, no leagues in Pennsylvania only have 6 teams. So now we got to find a week 5 game. Or week 4, depending on where they put the crossover.
yeah, the crossover will be
Right.
week 5. So you're
So
talking
we need a
week 4, yeah.
4. Well, who are we going to play week 4? Everybody's into their leagues. And even if they are open, chances are they're not going to want to play us.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we've went out when this whole thing came to pass in the last winter, beginning of last winter, all District 1, all District 3, all District 11, nobody.
No one yet. So, I mean,
we
I
don't
know
have a game yet.
we talked about the Downtowns, Coatesville.
No, none of them are available.
None of them are available.
You know, North Penn said, oh, yeah, well, we would play, but they had to check their schedule. But
Not available.
they're all into their league.
Right. So,
So it's really dumb. You know, for us, it's really going to hurt us, you know, because we may not have a game. And you sure don't want to buy week 4.
yeah, leading into the game, which you would think would be Manheim Central, I guess,
Right.
depending on what happens.
Right.
It could be Cocalico, but it's one of those
It's
2
gonna be
teams.
yeah.
But I would anticipate it to be Manheim
Right.
Central. So, is there a chance of going outside of the state?
It's not an option that we'd like to explore because if you go outside the state, it doesn't count.
Correct. Yeah.
So, but you know, you're gonna run into the same thing. Everybody outside the state's into their league, so you end up looking to the independents.
Okay. So like Malvern Prep type.
Malvern Prep, some of the schools in Cincinnati and Ohio, Moeller, IMG, you know, I mean, those are the schools that have to go all over and play
Right,
independent
right.
schedules. They're, you know,
Was it like those California schools, like is it Bosco or like
John
like
Bosco's in New Jersey.
Oh, that
yeah.
Bosco's in Jersey. Okay, yeah.
And
There's
that's, I mean, and that's a whole. I mean, they're college teams, and you know,
like Paramus and like all these.
So I don't know. I mean, you know, it would have been when they decided they wanted to go to more sections. They just should have revisited the whole Lancaster-Lebanon merger and gone through with it, because they're already talking.
They're just like delaying it. They're just pushing it off.
Well, a couple of the Berks teams are talking about moving out of the Berks League. You know, like Daniel Boone and those guys, Twin Valley, they're tucked down against Chester County.
Right.
You know, and they probably would leave if they did an LL Berks merger because.
So they go to Chestmont?
Probably, yeah. I don't know that it's going to happen. It's only been in the discussions.
Right.
But, you know, I mean, most of the schools they would play would be closer than what they're playing now.
The only other tidbit for 2020 is going to get to play Exeter. You're going to play Exeter next year, and Exeter come here in 2021. It's been a few years, probably. Were you head coach yet last time you played Exeter? Would have been early mid 2000s, a little bit after us, but right before you became head coach then, like 04, 05, probably right in there.
Yeah.
So it's nice. I know, especially for those local you talk about. We're at Mifflin this year, but it's a local game. People will get turnout.
Sure.
Same thing with Exeter. It'll be a great opportunity.
It's been good for Berks County.
Yeah.
Exeter for years we tried to schedule them on one of those open early dates and they wouldn't play us. But they must think the well's running dry at Wilson or something because they agreed to. We had to drop spring forward.
Right.
And, you know, the logic behind that is really simple. You know, the head coach of Springford's son's a quarterback on our football team, a sophomore quarterback. And as I told the Chad Brubaker at Springford, I said, it wouldn't be fair to your son playing for Wilson to be playing against you. Number one, because, you know, he can't come to you if he's uncertain about something and say, hey, Dad, you know, I'm not quite sure my read progression or whatever on this, because he can't do that because you're coaching the opposition. So, you know, Chad was a little upset at first, but I think he finally understood it was be better for his son not to be put into that predicament.
Right. Well, then there's also the opportunity then in 2022 they could pop back up on the schedule.
Back up again.
So I think that is it for 2020. We covered everything there. Last things here back in 2019, but looking at as a program in general, you know, the team is celebrating the 75th season of the program. There's a lot of things going on. We got events happening in October, the night of your Warwick game, October 11th. We're welcoming back the 9 years, all those championship teams from 69, 79, 89, 99, and 2009. So we're welcoming back a whole bunch of alumni to celebrate with us that night. And
doesn't put any pressure on 2000.
No, none whatsoever. I'll let you do that. We're not going to do that. So and actually 59 was a very good year as well. Didn't win a title, but they were 8-1-1, I believe. So it goes back pretty far. The nines have been a good number to end with. So hopefully, 2019 hopefully can follow suit. But then October 12th, that Saturday, we're having the alumni flag football game, which you're going to be one of our coaches for that. And
it should be a lot of fun. I mean, a lot of people are worried. A lot of the old guys are worried, and I keep telling them, you're only going to be jogging against old guys that are jogging. But, you know.
Yeah.
A lot of people think it's going to be a good time.
We will have plenty more information on that to come in a following episode, and we'll be releasing rosters for that soon. But, you know, looking back, since we're looking back over 75 years and celebrating that this year, have there been, you know, we spoke about this year about maybe overlooked, underappreciated people. What about in your entire career here? Have there been some people that didn't get enough pub that maybe people aren't quite aware of were a big impact player at Wilson, and give them their due now?
We've had some tremendous impact players over the years. I mean, I think of a guy back in '78, Mark Cornfield, who broke his collarbone early in the season and was going to be a starter two-way player, and actually even having broke his collarbone held the passing completion or a reception record for quite a while. I think he was on a team with Randy Simcox, Brad Olinger, and Joe Pull. There's three running backs that all rushed for close to 1,000 yards on the same team. That was a team that should have had playoffs because they were really loaded.
11-0, was it?
11-0. I think back to we've had some running backs that, have been studs, and really done their thing. Doug Ertz probably didn't get the attributes that he deserved because he shared the backfield with Pete Schreck. And Pete was a little bit more, explosive and dynamic, but, Doug Ertz went on to a really nice career at Lehigh, and obviously Zach Ertz.
Was Vito on that team too?
Vito would have been an underclassman on that
yeah.
team, yeah.
But yeah.
Sophomore, I believe. He was a sophomore. Schreck was a junior, and Ertz was a senior. But they were really good. We've had some really good linebacker, right across the board. I mean, every year the press seems to pick out one or two kids, and that's who they focus on. And you have all those unsung heroes on the offensive line. You got some defensive linemen that are doing things that occupying double teams, so they don't make the tackle, they don't get credit. But that's Wilson football. It's it's not about me, it's about we. And we have kids that are willing to make those sacrifices, and that's why we are what we are.
How about your most memorable games from your 40 plus years, or even ones that maybe you weren't here for but people talked about? What jumps out? One or two.
Obviously, the state championship game with Upper St. Clair, which we should have won, but had a bad decision right at the end of the game. That was tough. That was an opportunity for us to be state champs. The following year, we had a chance to be state champs again when Jeff Nadrowski was in the end zone from his knees up, and they said he was down. Cost us a game against Ridley that year up at Lehigh. The Fog Bowl.
Yeah.
Everybody remembers the Fog Bowl, the Chris Adams, Dean Carreras in the light. I bust on Shane Stafford a lot because we lost a game down here at home when he was his first game starting. He went in the second half against Owen J. Roberts. And I believe he was a sophomore. And we got all the way down, and we were out of timeouts, and we were down on the 1 foot line, and we had just run ISO and got stopped, and we were scrambling to get set up, and we're yelling in to run the same play, which was an ISO again. And so he got up there and he's yelling, same play, which instead of, which kind of set him up to stop us on
right.
the 1 inch line,
Yeah.
and we lost the game. But I bust on him about that a lot.
That would have been 91.
Yeah. The game against Bethel Park up at State College, which the mythical running into the kicker and losing in triple overtime. I think we ended up with 14 penalties and they had 1, or so, it was a little. We should have beat them, and we would have. That was the year I think
Bethlehem Liberty
won it, and we would have beat Bethlehem Liberty pretty handily. I mean, that was Beck's touchdown got called back. Beck's in the end zone. They throw a flag for holding. Back on the 35-yard line.
So the losses hang with you, because you mentioned the Fog Bowl, which I think is the only game you won of all the ones you mentioned. So those are the ones that hang around. Yeah. So, one more loss that I want to talk about, just because I recently saw it, didn't know anything about it until I was doing, Bulldog Hour and website research, was actually a year right before some of those games you talked about. You talked about 89 and 90, but in 88, I believe, was the last time you guys had a 3-game losing streak until I think my junior year in 2001. I was researching this for when I sat down with Chad for 2.5 hours.
Hempfield game?
No, this was Pottsville here. Bradburn touchdown last play of the game. They said he was down at like the half inch.
Right.
I had never heard about that one before. I think, and it was the last time Wilson had lost 3 games in a row until 2001. But it was. I didn't know if we recall that one.
Yeah. I remember a game where against Hempfield, we punted. We were up, and we punted, and the ball, our kids were all standing around, and the ball's rolling and rolling and rolling, and they're just standing around it, waiting just to down it. And it was probably only a minute and a half left in the game, and their kid came running through in the dead run, picked it up, and went down the sidelines. And I think Vito tackled him on like the 6 or 7 yard line, but then they scored to win that game.
Since we're always yelling, pick it up, pick it up, pick it up.
And then we also lost another game to Hempfield where we kicked a 39-yard field goal to win the game. and with no timeouts left. We got called for not having enough men on the line of scrimmage, which in video you can see we clearly do. All right. And then we got moved back 5 yards and had to kick it again just under the goalpost.
Of course.
So we lost that. So, the one win that probably, that I do remember is the game here against Mifflin when everybody went home.
2014.
Everybody went home because we were getting drubbed.
That was the start of something special, too.
And we came back in the second half and then went into overtime and I just graduated from Dickinson.
Walbert.
Walbert. First play he was in overtime. First play of the game he was in.
Touchdown,
Caught a touchdown in the corner of the end zone over Johnson, which that was a biggie.
Yeah.
That one I remember. And then when Josh Smith was a sophomore, I think, he came in the second half and had 200 and some yards receiving against McCaskey. So there are some wins, but obviously the losses stick.
Those are the ones that
in
hang in
craw.
there. How about looking back over your coaching career so far? Was there a super odd moment with a student athlete of yours, of the other team, of opposing coach, of parents? Like, was there ever a weird moment? Referees? Like, was there ever something like that was really weird?
I don't know if I'd say weird as much as I remember playing Central Dauphin East, and we beat them out here in the regular season, and their quarterback
recent?
Nine Niedheimer was Ike's senior year.
I'm drawing a blank. I'm drawing a blank right now.
Real nice kid. And we beat him. And he came up to me after the game and said, "Coach, great game." He said, "We'll see you in October or November."
Huh.
And then we ended up playing him here in November, and he ran all over us. The quarterback had 200 yards rushing.
Wow.
And Ike had like 17 or 18 tackles. He was the only one making
Okay, yeah. I remember.
We were struggling. I can't think of his name.
Yeah, it'll pop up. I'll try to insert it in there when we have the discussion afterward. We'll figure it out. I know who you're talking about though, because he was one heck of an athlete.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
Well, he ended up going to maybe it was Delaware State or someplace to play safety.
Everson took over for him the next year before he moved on to Harrisburg.
Yeah. Well, Everson was at Harrisburg, and then the kid that came into Harrisburg who was going to start, so Everson went to CD East. And the Harrisburg kid graduated. And Everson went
all right. Yeah, those Harrisburg area schools are interesting. The way that the borders are set up, because there's some school district, you may know which one it is. They have border here, and there's all these schools in between. It's really interesting though how unique the Harrisburg area of the school districts are lined up. So, all right, this is something that we came up with recently and put you on the spot with this one. It's really deep though. It's really deep. So you're gonna have to draw. When we make the Wilson football movie, who do you want the actor to portray you? Who's gonna be the person?
Off the top of my head, I would say, Chris Farley, Adam Sandler, somebody that's a comedian, because it would be a great, mix.
All right.
That way.
Well, we'll figure something out, but we thought we'd give you the opportunity to give us a proposal before we, took it to Hollywood, and we made it big with that.
Yeah,
so,
okay.
But that's pretty much it. I think you answered everything. The only other thing, and I don't even know if you can answer this right now. Are you thinking about your future and what it has to do with both you personally as an educator and also here doing your coaching? Is it a year-to-year thing? Do you have a 5-year plan? If anything like that solidified?
My future right now is Central Dauphin and Mifflin. No, I don't know. I say all the time, I don't want to be like, I thought Joe Paterno the last 5 to 7 years he coached was not effective as a coach, was a figurehead, and it hurt their program. And I don't want to, I'm not at that, but I don't want to either get to that. Drago quoted me as saying, I won't be coaching in my 70s. So that kind of, I guess, puts me on
puts a little bit of a deadline on
it. My wife says otherwise. I don't know if she says that because she thinks I'll go nuts without anything to do, or whether she says that because she doesn't want me at home full time.
Could be a little bit of both.
Could be a little bit of both, right? But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm going to coach this year. I don't have any plans for retiring before, at the end of this year. But my health, my wife's health, I want to leave the program in good hands. And so, when I look at some of the guys that are interested in being head coaches, right now they've got little kids, and being a head coach when you have little kids, it's really hard because you don't get to raise your kids. Because I'm not home. I'm going to Berks County football meetings. I'm going to LL quarterback club meetings. I'm going to Van Reed meetings. I'm going to Lincoln Park meetings. You're meeting with the press. You're meeting with it's just.
You're meeting with two nobodies and randomly after practice.
You're meeting, I'm meeting with, on Thursday evening after practice, everybody goes home and takes their wives out or whatever. I have senior starter dinner.
Right.
It's just, that goes with the territory, and I'm fine with that. But that makes it really, really hard when you have young kids. So, guys like, Jeremy Palm and Jake Peterson that have aspirations of one day being a head coach. I think they're hoping, as their kids get a little older, but then that progress just changes because now they got to take their young kids to everything sports.
Right.
So I don't know, but it is year to year.
Yeah.
To answer your question, it is year.
You reevaluate after years over and decide what you want to do.
And I talk to all my individual coaches and say right out to them, I said, be perfectly straight. Am I not as effective as I was a year ago? And I tell them to be perfectly honest with me on that. But at the same time, I don't know, since I coach most of them, who's going to turn around and say, oh, you stank. But I think I would get the idea from the way they talked. So right now, other than losing Paul, things are pretty steady, and we'll get that part straightened out, and keep on plodding along.
Well, great. I know we're all happy to have you here, and hopefully you're around for a few more years because we always enjoy the sit down. And I know, like I said at the beginning, everyone always watches this show and wants to hear what you have to say. So we appreciate you taking time to talk with us. We know you've got a busy schedule.
They get tired of me saying the same thing.
Well, we try to come up with them different questions. So, keep them on their toes. Maybe they'll learn something new. So
I know Drago and Reinhardt always say, I'll just pull out last year's tape.
Change a few names, few numbers.
Yeah. And, you're going to finish third or fourth, win six, Yeah. But, hey, it is what it is.
That's right. All right. Well, thank you for joining us once again, Coach.
Yep, thank you.
All right, so that was our interview with Coach Dahms, just recorded last week. We hope everyone enjoyed it. There's a lot of great insight there. Hopefully we asked some interesting questions and got to introduce our who would play you in the Wilson football movie, which you'll hear Ernie Wolber and Chase Godfrey answer when we broadcast those assistant coach interviews on Wednesday evening, August 14th. So I think that's going to do it for this episode of the Bulldog Hour. Do please continue to visit the website, bulldoghour.com, and make sure you follow us across social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Those are places that you can get all of our content. And remember that the team starts official summer 3-a-day practices tomorrow morning. So when most of you are waking up to get ready for to go to work or whatever you're doing, if you're a student over the summer, enjoy your last 2 weeks before school starts again. And just know that the players and coaches are going to be added in the summer conditions for the next 2 weeks as we lead up to the Parkland scrimmage this coming Saturday and the first game against Central Dauphin at Gursky Stadium on Friday, August 23rd. But I think that pretty much does it for me here. For Justin Raffoff and the entire Wilson football program, please continue to watch the Bulldog Hour. We'll be back Wednesday and next weekend with more episodes. But until next time, do remember, go Bulldogs.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Bulldog Hour. Want more Wilson football? Follow the show on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Subscribe to the podcast on iTunes and SoundCloud, or visit www.bulldoghour.com. The Bulldog Hour is a featured program on jmnjrradio.com.